Good evening, everybody. This is the legislation and committee of the whole, the City of Utica Common Council on May 18, 2022. We have 5 pieces that are in the committee of the whole right now. And I'm just going to go through like I normally do. We'll just go through from top to bottom. If anybody wants to have a discussion, we'll open up the floor for discussion on whatever piece they would choose. So, introduction to local law number 1 of 2022, registration, post of owner and manager info and designation of agent. I believe we're waiting on that?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, I want to hold off on that.
Yep, we're gonna hold off on that. Proposed ordinance number 2, ordinance amending composition of the Bureau of Fire.
Which one's this?
Nobody's out of the safer grant yet.
Proposed ordinance number 2.
Oh, that's the one that's been in committee? Yep.
Any discussion?
Nope.
Okay. Proposed ordinance number 3, ordinance establishing vacant building registry.
So we have, I expected Sam Wells to meet with the mayor yesterday, and there was just some kind of miscommunication. There was definitely a meeting set up a week from today with the mayor's staff and Sam Wells, the same man who we met with last time.
As well as, I hope, Commissioner Phillips.
Yep,
Okay.
Commissioner Phillips, Brian Thomas, Derek Crossman, anybody else that the mayor wants. I actually thought I might ask the mayor if he wants to bring in Chief Ingersoll, because you had a good point about the fire department. This is relevant to them too. And in fact, we had a vacant building since our last meeting, a vacant building burned.
On Park Ave.
So, on Park Ave. So I thought your point about fire was really
Yeah.
interesting. So I might ask the mayor if he'd like to also include the chief in on that meeting with Sam Wells.
Right, and if they okay the inspection, or when the codes goes in, they should team up with the fire department and see what's in there, you know what I mean? Is there any hazardous materials, any stairs missing, anything that you know, they'll point out that could be deemed hazardous, so
Right.
that's
So
good.
I'm leaving this in committee for now.
Okay, great, all right. Next.
And if anybody has any particular suggestions on that, I'd love to hear it on the legislation. Things that we
Honestly,
added.
Jim Zecca really proposed this legislation back, I think it was like 2013.
Okay.
I mean, he has a boatload of knowledge on that.
Okay.
I would just suggest maybe reaching out to him and
All right.
seeing what he has to say about
Okay,
it.
great, thank you. That's
Yeah,
all.
if there's that piece of legislation in there, you may want to research it, ask the clerk, and see what's in that piece of legislation, and kind of compare it to your legislation, which
Okay. That's
I think is
helpful.
very
I'll
well
do that.
thought out, your
Right.
piece, though.
I'll reach out to Jim Zecca.
All right. Proposed resolution number 11, requesting each district councilperson to allocate funding to establish a business directory app. We have not discussed what was going to go on in each district yet of the ARPA money. I think we had a short conversation, Councilman Mayola and myself, but I haven't really talked to anybody else regarding each district. So I think Councilperson Fred said it best. I think we should just have a special meeting on that, just kind of discuss and maybe kick around some ideas and things of that nature. Are you guys all right with that, or?
Got my money allocated.
I just wanted to say, I mean, Frank, whatever, and whether it has to do with ARPA funding or so on and so forth, but he did say he was gonna be here June 1st for a presentation. He's gonna put some stuff together for us, just even to introduce it to the council, the ideas that he has.
Okay.
So whether we do it this way or we do it another way, it's,
Yeah,
you
we'll
know,
wait
a
for
way
the
to get the discussion
presentation,
going.
and it may entice some of you to say, hey, that's a great idea.
I would welcome that, whether we end up doing it this way or some.
Yeah, and that's it, just to kind of get the idea, and he just reached out to me, he was away for the past,
Yeah.
few weeks, but he said June 1st he will be here for a presentation.
Frank, I think what I was suggesting in a special meeting was so that everybody could talk about what they're planning on doing with their ARPA funds, to give each other ideas.
Yes, that'd be great.
Just to inform each other.
And maybe this gentleman can say approximately, what costs were incurred in other cities, how much did it actually cost to put the system together and upkeep it and whatever. So that might be a advantage for us when he comes and talks. All right. Proposed ordinance number 3, moratorium on casinos. I know, anybody have any discussion on proposed ordinance number 3?
No, the administration is working on legislation for our city code, because there's no zoning for casinos at this time, so we're working on that. In addition to that, they're also working on those amendments that we proposed. One was marks for the daytime, the other one was the distance between each convenience store. So
Convenience store.
At this time, our corporate counsel, Stephanie, will be down today, and we'll get an update on how that legislation is being proposed. All right?
Yep.
I just got one thing to add to that. I don't notice if, unless it's just me, but have you guys seen a lot of like carpet sales, rug sales and windows? I mean, they're just kind of throwing up these rugs and windows and nobody really knows what's going on. There's one on Bleecker Street, the old Heroes Drugs, I could tell you, has carpets in there. Whitesboro Street has one. I mean, we might want to talk about possibly including, I don't even know how like you address that. But I've been. They are.
I think Councilwoman Al had the window display already. That's also a top of one of their.
I remember her bringing that up. But are you familiar across from like? So they're literally selling rugs. Like, no one's buying a lion rug at $175 a rug. You know what I mean? So me personally, I think there's a little more going on to that. So if we're talking about a moratorium, we might want to discuss what that's actually zoned for and possibly include that in the moratorium.
Yeah, I think maybe we could refer to codes, let them go check it out. Do they have, is there some type of fee or something, to operate a business like that? Or could they just come in here and just open up
Right,
and just
and
start operating a business
Just
like that?
another
So I
thing to
think-
add to the
Yeah.
add to the bunch.
Almost like they use it as blockage.
And that's what Frank was talking about, Councilman Yellen was talking about, to Katie Ayala's point, or Councilperson Ayala's point was, yeah, they're putting stuff inside the windows to kind of
So that they can
deter
do
from.
whatever they want inside.
Yeah, I mean, and I looked it up, this person's from the Yonkers, I tried to look it up, they're under a different LLC under their home, goes to another different LLC to another home. So, I mean, there's a long laundry list of LLCs that are tied up to that actual business that I haven't been able to provide that they're actually selling rugs. So, definitely
Right.
something that we might want to consider when talking about that moratorium.
Yeah, agreed.
Of
But you don't want that rug, trust me, you wouldn't buy it even if they gave it to you for free, so.
Councilman Miola, you have the floor.
The corporate council's working on those pieces I'm positive of. Also, Mark Williams' piece that closing at a certain time, the distance piece, and the window display piece. So we're waiting for those to come written to us.
Giorgio, yeah, from
Yep.
Giorgio.
Now, I had mentioned the idea of lighting. Some of those stores, they use that like LED rope lighting and it is bright as daylight. Is there something we can do about that?
We may mention it to Stephanie during this meeting,
Okay.
and maybe she can come to any solution for it.
Okay.
We should talk about the color of buildings too, because purple and green aren't really working out. You know.
You're pushing this, Sam. You're really pushing.
Well, especially, yeah, like the Miami, I think it's the Miami Smoke Shop on, like, at Roses, right?
Yeah.
It looks terrible and it is scenic in the store.
Well, we did do and that's kind of what we did at the Harbor Point. It's more of like a conforming base so that everything kind of flows in with it.
Right.
I forgot what the terminology was off the top of my head, but you could definitely adopt that, but you're either gonna have to make it towards new establishments or if they go for a new zoning permit, establish it towards that, because everybody else is
If
grandfathered
it's
in.
within the scenic and historic district, that means they have to comply within that first, then go.
It
Yes,
should have gone for a
Yes.
certificate of appropriateness.
correct, correct.
Now, and if they didn't, can you go, then you're not grandfather clause in, right?
No, right, because they
Then you
would,
go
they
back
would,
to
they would be,
table.
they would be in violation of the actual code,
Right.
so.
So if it's within the district and they're not coming compliance with scenic and historic, you can make some changes.
Okay.
Councilman DeBrango, what else, sir?
Well, I know that we have the City of Utica Civilian Safety Board. I know in front of us, we have the answers to the three questions that Councilperson Friend had wrote up for us. And so I don't know if you want to review them between 6 o'clock, between now and 6 o'clock, and maybe go in executive session after, and let's talk about it. I know there was a third candidate, which I don't see a response from her.
She's been quite sick, and so
Okay.
I was just texting with her. I think she's gonna email it to me now.
Okay.
Or soon, but she was quite sick for a few
Yeah.
days. So-
I mean, there is no rush on it, because I still think that they're trying to establish, the administration's trying to establish their end of it as well. They have to have a couple members as well, and so there is no rush on it, so if we have to wait, we'll wait.
Fred Nichols.
There's also Chicharello.
Where's his? Next page? Behind the mayor's thing, behind the mayor's thing.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize that. Okay,
Frank?
got it.
Frank Miola had suggested that maybe we actually could ask these people to come in 2 weeks and we meet them.
That would be nice, I agree.
And talk to
Give
them
them 5 minutes in executive
during
session,
executive.
then we can all come out, you know, on
That's
2
like I said,
people.
The way we used to do it before, might as
Yeah.
well
Okay,
start
what
doing
we'll
that
do is
again.
have the clerk schedule them next meeting. I'll call a committee of the whole meeting. Could we do it during the committee of the whole meeting?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll call it earlier. than
It's
we
on
did
our
today.
appointments, anything in our appointments go under executive session.
But we can have an executive session during a committee meeting?
Yes,
Yeah,
it's on our
okay.
appointments.
So when we screen them, they should be in executive session as well.
Yeah.
So we'll go in the back, they'll sit out here and wait, interview them
Call
one
them
at
in.
a time, and then we'll discuss it, and hopefully we'll come out with a decision of 2 members.
Absolutely.
And there
So
was a
regarding-
4th person, but that person's not interested anymore. Is that correct?
If they don't show up, that means, of course, they're not interested in the screening.
But we have 3 interested parties.
No, we have,
2 have answered the questionnaire, and Mona has been sick, but will.
Yeah.
we have a
I'm
4th.
familiar with Mona.
Wasn't Joe Burke gonna be involved?
that's
Nope,
right.
Joe decided to,
Oh, he decided not to?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Oh, okay.
All right. I don't have anything else. Does anybody have anything that they want to discuss while we're all here?
Yes, I do. There's a
Okay.
couple of things. The one is, I'd like to introduce, hang on, there's a couple of pieces.
Does that have to wait till the 6 o'clock meeting, or?
No, we can introduce it at the committee of the whole since there's a quorum. Councilman Beatrice, over here, Councilman Williamson, Councilman Noah. Okay. Okay, the first one is actually, hang on. let me
Take your
get there.
time, we got 15
Is
minutes.
proposed ordinance number 8. I'd like to introduce that to the committee of the whole. So I'd like to make a motion in a second to put proposed ordinance number 8 into the committee of the whole. Do I have a second on that?
Yep.
Okay. Introduce proposed
It's
ordinance
okay,
number.
so you can't really do it now, but.
No, you
Samantha,
can't,
would
Frank, we're a committee of the whole, it's a quorum.
No, what you can do,
No, Frank, that's, that's,
No,
guys, I
this-
didn't break the
Time
rules,
out.
Frank.
We have the
I didn't.
master here.
this committee is only for discussion.
No, it's not. You guys wrote the rules. I mean, I'm not trying to argue with you, but it says the committee of the whole. The committee of the whole shall consist of all members of the common council.
That's true.
According to your rules that you wrote, a majority of elected common council members, which consists of a quorum, shall constitute a quorum for the transaction of business.
That's
So I
correct.
would like to make a
Not for committee
motion.
of the whole.
Yes, that's the way,
We don't make decisions in committee of the
Okay,
whole.
we're just gonna put it in committee, so, right? So we're doing, put it in committee?
you're gonna make a motion, then you gotta pull it out of committee. So
Did
that's
you have
that's the
our,
way the rules.
did you have
that's
our
the rules.
judge review this yet?
Yes, I did. I actually talked to him.
How about corporate counsel?
This number 8?
Judge is our
Talking
counsel.
about the speed and coverage?
Yep, so
How
I'm
about-
just going through the proposed ordinances, so
How about
I've got a
corp-
motion and a second.
How about corporate counsel?
I've got a motion and a second. I'd like to make a motion to put that in the committee of the whole. Thank you.
Listen, I'm only in charge of this committee, the whole meeting, as far as who's authorizes.
That's the president's job, Sam.
For the record, I don't have anybody
That's
here
the
that's
president's
authorizing it for the
To run the
record.
meeting and.
Right, so
put
I'd
the
like to make a
legislation.
motion and a second to propose, or I have a second. Do I have 5 votes to put the proposed ordinance number 8 into the committee of the whole?
You had a second, Mark second,
Okay, anybody in objection? No, okay, let's move on. I'd like to make a motion and a second to propose ordinance number 9 into the committee of the whole. This is still going along with several pieces that I have to introduce.
Can I just hold off 1 second? I
Sure.
just want to make sure that we're doing it right
Sure,
before.
absolutely.
So I'm gonna, Judge, you gotta jump right into the hot seat.
Harvey?
You're
gotta
gonna
get
have
a
to
little
jump right
closer
into the
so we
hot
can
seat
hear
here. I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
We're in the committee of the whole,
Yeah,
and we discussed all legislation that was in the committee of the whole.
right.
Now there is legislation that's gonna be in our pre-meeting conference. Now, Councilperson Testa would like to bring to the floor legislation that is in our pre-meeting conference.
I mean, it's
In
a
the
new-
committee of the whole.
New piece of legislation?
Yes.
Yes,
New piece of
a
legislation?
new piece.
You can bring it to the floor, it'll take 9 votes.
It has to be referred
Pass
to
it.
committee of the whole.
No, if according.
This hasn't been in the committee of the
Time
whole.
out, because I got a quick question. The way these
Don't
rules
talk.
read.
Every time I try to talk, you talk. If you
Go on
have,
the floor.
if you have something that hasn't been introduced, you can introduce it. And you move it. takes 5 votes to move it. Once it's moved, if it's new, and it hasn't been in any committee, it takes 9 votes, because it's new.
Thank you.
If it's been in committee, 5 votes gets it out of committee, and 5 votes gets it passed, other than something like a bond, which takes 6 votes.
Thank you, Judge.
Have I made that clear? You get it?
Right, so,
So it's
You
this
can't-
is
You
introduced for the
can't
first time.
introduce something
This
new.
is unanimous. Yes, it is,
You
Frank. The
can't
way you
introduce
wrote the
something
rules
new tonight and get a vote other than the 9.
on the floor.
All right, Samantha,
But
if you
we're
want me to
introducing
clarify
it
the
to
bylaws,
committee
I'll
of the
clarify the
whole.
bylaws for you, but our normal,
Frank, I didn't change the rules. You
Samantha,
did.
if
He
you
just
want me to-
clarified it for you.
no, we did not, and the judge,
These are not these are the second-class cities law.
Correct.
Law. Our rules never supersede.
it's a privilege
second
for a
class.
piece of legislation to go to committee,
Every
Samantha.
piece of
What
legislation
we
that's
need
new
is the committee of
needs
the
9
whole, which
votes.
constituents,
Every
which
piece of
constitutes
legislation
a
not
quorum.
needed needs a majority unless the statute says otherwise.
Because I'm introducing it. So now I'm
You
introducing it to the
cannot-
committee
you
of the
can-
whole, which is a quorum.
We cannot vote, Samantha, because there's
No,
no
no, no, no.
documentation
Frank, you
of us
can
voting, there's no people
introduce it. If
recording
I
this.
get 5 votes to bring it
Oh
into
my
committee
God,
of the
see, that's
whole,
it.
I now have the right, because that's the way your rules read now.
Then I'll
We don't meet
clarify
as
them.
an ad hoc committee.
I will
We
clarify
meet as a
them.
committee of the whole.
And they don't read that way
I'm not
because-
introducing it to the floor for the first time. I am introducing it to a committee of the whole, which constitutes a quorum. Plain and simple.
You may
Yeah,
introduce it
but
at the
you're-
main
you're
meeting,
never gonna
Samantha,
get
not now.
Passed in that method.
Right.
with
You
9
may do it
votes.
at the main meeting,
It's
you
still
can't do it now.
new legislation. It doesn't change its character because of a gimmick.
Right.
Judge,
Can I
It
just
becomes-
ask
let me
why
tell
it
you something.
matters?
If it's a new
Why?
piece of
Why does this
legislation-
matter?
because he's saying, even
I
if
don't
we
care.
bring these out, they
If it's
need
a new
9,
piece
they
of
need 9
legislation-
people. It doesn't need 9 people. We meet
Test
as a
it.
committee of the whole.
My
You need 5 people
dear
to
You'll
introduce
only
it.
need 5
from
people
the-
tonight.
At large, if it's a new piece of legislation, there are no mechanics to get around the 9.
If
It's
you
always
intro-
gonna be 9 if
Judge.
it comes to the floor for the first time, for a vote.
He-
That committee thing does not apply to that.
Judge, so let me ask you a question. So we meet, Judge, we meet as a quorum, do we not? For a committee of the whole. So I am introducing
gonna-
legislation for the first time.
If you
for
don't
the
get 9
council.
votes,
Yeah,
you're
I'm
not
good.
gonna pass a new piece of legislation.
Are you guys kidding me right now?
I don't, listen. I'm
This
letting
is
him
what I'm
explain.
saying, though, that doesn't make sense. You
Bob.
meet as a committee of the whole. According to your rules, it says committee of the whole. The committee of the whole shall consist of all members of the common council. According to what you said in your rules, it says a quorum, a majority of all elected council members shall constitute a quorum for transaction of business, plain and simple. I'm introducing it to the committee of the whole for the first time, which only needs 5 votes to pull it out, or otherwise it would need 9 votes to pull it out. Plain and simple.
At a regular meeting,
No, it
Samantha.
isn't, because the committee of the whole rules do not
Do not make
supersede
decisions,
the second
correct.
class cities law. The second class cities law, if it's never been before the body.
Correct.
But it is before the body.
No. Samantha,
Judge,
I
do
don't
we
wanna
not
argue
meet
with
as
you.
a body?
If it's brand new, you're not gonna use that gimmick, it will
Right.
not work.
How is it a gimmick? So, then what's the point of having the committee of the
I
whole?
understand what you're saying.
What's-
It's
no,
very-
honestly,
I think
can
what
you
you're
do me a
saying-
favor and explain
I think
to
what
me?
you're saying was very interesting, but you,
But-
you can never on the record show that you passed a piece of legislation.
Without your
that
president there,
isn't
without
new.
So let
It
me,
is
so
new.
let me ask a question.
And what I advise you then, don't take it out of committee.
So Judge, let me
Because
ask you a
if you
question
do
then.
try to
It's not
pass
even in committee yet.
on you,
It's not even in
it
committee,
violates
that's
the
right.
second class citizens.
But let me ask you a question then, Judge. Let me ask you a question. Quick question. So why do we only need 5 people to pull it out of the committee?
Majority
Because
moves any
the-
piece of legislation.
Because there's a
Because-
quorum of the common council. I don't care what you
Because
say.
the
Challenge
committee-
it.
the
Challenge it.
committee-
It's not introduced
committee
it's introduced
cannot-
to the
challenge
body.
it is
The committee cannot
The only
pass
person
on the
you're challenging is you.
same night and try to treat a legislation as not new.
Judge.
That's where the gimmick is.
Has everybody
You-
on
you
the council
cannot-
been
you-
introduced, the
if you-
legislation?
If you
No.
met tomorrow as the committee of the whole, you could bring it out with 5 votes.
Correct.
But you cannot do it at the same meeting,
So let-
because the same meeting
Does
is
not
still
constitute.
new legislation.
Right.
That's the key.
So then what
It's-
was the
you're
point of
trying-
changing the committee of the whole?
You cannot supersede the second-class cities law
I wanna see second
with,
class cities.
with that, because it
Show me
will
that.
never change its character.
Mike,
It
you're
would
trying to take
make,
your job, Mike.
it would make sense if
Mike,
we,
you're trying to take your
if we
job.
met not as a whole body
Mike, she's
on
trying
a
to take your
quorum.
job.
You can make a motion in a second to amend stuff in committee now because we meet
President
as a
Samantha
quorum.
Clausen will test,
I'll
I'm
tell you
trying to
what
take
the
your job,
argument
Mike.
is.
I actually heard it
the other one else changed.
We are live here. We are
Right.
live.
Right,
She refers to the committee.
okay.
Now she wants to take it out of committee, 5 votes,
Right.
and then pass it. I'm saying, Secretary of State law said, it still doesn't change his character as new legislation. Takes 9 votes.
Is it the exact same legislation that was put in committee?
It never reached committee
Yes.
yet.
Well, if I make a motion in a second to put in a committee, that means a majority of the common council has voted to put it in committee of the whole, which constitutes a quorum.
So, yeah, but that's, you wanna do all that in one night?
Yeah.
That's the point.
If,
And she's taking your job.
all right,
Just say
so-
something.
So hang on, so
Just say it.
here's legitimately, if you introduce an ordinance tonight on the floor,
Not on the floor, in the committee of the whole.
It needs unanimous
So
to
we've
pass.
already put five,
It's-
because the way
no.
the rules read, you have to have a majority of the common council put it in committee.
The way, no,
Yeah, Mike, it says
those
committee of
are
the
the
whole.
way the rules read, but you cannot, with the majority of the council, put something in committee by introduction unless it's in a main meeting that has been called to order. This is not a main meeting that has been
Alright,
called.
so what if we do it in the committee of the whole?
Same thing. You can't do it in a pre-meeting conference. It has to be introduced on the floor of a regularly scheduled meeting, which is 7 PM. So if you introduce it at 7 PM, put it in committee with 5 votes. 2 weeks from now, or 72 hours from now even, if you call it a
Absolutely
special
correct.
meeting, you
Absolutely.
could pull it out and then pass it with your 5 votes.
Special meeting.
But you can't do it all at once.
So
in
let
one-
me ask you,
one-
let me,
one-
let me
That's
ask,
what I-
let me ask you a question. So why does the committee of the whole, why does the committee of the whole state, the committee of the whole shall consist of all members of the common council, which constitute a quorum?
And the only reason you could safely have a committee of the whole
This is why it
because-
doesn't make sense.
No, the only reason you could safely have a committee of the whole, if I'm gonna is because that is a committee meeting that you cannot act on any legislation nor make motions as a body during that committee. It's only to discuss legislation that the committee wants to either develop themselves. So, let's say you had a committee meeting. You actually developed legislation today in that committee.
We
Okay?
are having it right now.
Right, right. Okay, you develop it in this committee. Legislation, committee develops it. If it actually gets introduced tonight, okay, you would need 9 votes to pass it. Period. End of story. And that's second-class cities law.
There's no reason to have the committee of the whole.
Well, there is, but that's the way the
Okay.
council president would rule on that, and that's where the judge would back it
Sure,
up.
okay, so I'd like to make a motion in a second
And I'm
to,
gonna continue
to
to
put
eat candies
proposed
till they get-
ordinance
Committee of the
number
whole is not a
8
meeting.
into committee.
It's not a committee of the whole. It's gonna be a
I
whole
make a
lot.
motion to close committee of the whole.
No, Frank, I'm not done, don't break my balls, please.
All right.
Alright, so I'd like to put proposed ordinance number 8 into committee. Do I have a second? Mark seconded. No, we can't.
Oh,
We
man.
can't do it.
No, you can't.
It's illegal to do.
Can-
We're doing something.
Jesus, then let me get 9 votes.
Can you tell me what piece of legislation you're talking about?
Not the fire department. How's that? Not the fire department one.
Which one is it?
It's the speed legislation.
look at it.
Alright, thank you. It's 8, 9, 10.
You said the judge looked at it.
He did.
Why did you look at it? How-
Well, because
This-
obviously he
this is
doesn't know what
new.
I'm talking about.
New legislation?
Yes,
Yes.
it
In
is.
that packet?
Yep.
Your Honor, did you have the
Eight-
opportunity to look at
number
that
8
legislation?
is.
Yes, he did.
Let's see.
Oh, it's not. Ready for the action?
So
Should I
you're-
walk
you're
back
telling
out?
me- You're telling me the judge didn't look at legislation. Is that what you're telling me? You're telling me that the judge didn't look at legislation before he came to
Are
the
you
meeting?
talking about all these the speed limit things?
Yes.
Well, you just introduce them.
No,
And
did
if
you have the
you
chance?
can't, you don't have 9 votes,
Did you have the chance to review?
then they go to committee, but you can't pass them tonight.
Right, but
because
could you introduce them in the committee of the whole
Committee
meeting?
cannot supersede
The-
the second-class cities law.
Well, here's the other thing with, let me make a clarification, even though I'm not in the committee of the whole, the committee of the whole should be running by way of the committee motions and seconds, but the motions that are made within committee are only so that you can proceed as a body as the committee. They do not count as actual motions of the common council. You have to have an in-session. Correct, correct,
We didn't do that.
correct.
Because we didn't have a quorum.
I know, but we had.
Doesn't matter,
back.
doesn't matter.
Okay,
It's a committee, it's not a meeting.
okay. Are we done? Are we done?
I don't know, I just
Okay.
walked in.
Yeah, are we done with the meeting, or you want to
No, I
continue?
want to continue.
Go ahead, you have the
Okay,
floor.
I'd like to make a motion to put proposed ordinance number 8 into committee. Mark second that. I'd like to make a motion to propose ordinance number 9 into committee. Mark second that. I'd like to make a motion to propose number 10
Second
into
it.
committee.
No, he's saying,
We're not, We're not doing this, right? We can't do it. We can't do that.
No, you can't do it now, but you could discuss doing it later.
Right.
So that's
Right.
fine. But you gotta make the motions and seconds later.
Even at
Yeah.
regular meeting, okay,
yeah,
all right. All right, so then I'm going up to legislation 13. Okay?
13?
Yep.
Can we wait till the 6 o'clock meeting? Why are we doing it in the committee of the whole? Let's do it in the pre-meeting conference.
Oh, okay, so I'll wait 4 minutes.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would like to go
sounds
get a
wonderful.
glass of
Okay,
water.
I'll wait 4 minutes.
All right, this
like to
committee of the
make a
whole meeting's
motion to
closed.
adjourn.
We'll resume in 5 minutes
I'll wait 4 minutes.
for the 6 PM meeting. Thank you.
I don't know where Councilwoman Celeste is. She's. All right, we'll wait a few more minutes for her. The legislation to be discussed in the pre-meeting conference dated May 18th. Sorry we're starting late. It is 6:10. Our first piece of legislation is ordinance number 1, introduced by Councilman Beatrice, no parking on Coventry Ave. Any discussion on this piece of legislation? Very good. Discussion's closed. We'll move to vote. Next piece of legislation is authorizing sale of wine, beer to Utica Zoo. It's the Brew Fest. I'm hoping that everybody has a chance to participate. Any discussion? Very good. Discussion's closed. We'll go to vote. Next piece of legislation is another authorizing wine and beer at Utica Zoo. Sunset Steps. That looks good. Any discussion? Discussion's closed. We'll move to vote. Next piece of legislation looks like a Board of E&A transfer. Our budget director's not here, but I'm assuming that Celeste Friend can help us out with this. Celeste, can you give us a summary on what went on with this transfer?
So this is another, we've done a couple of these this year. I believe we've done at least one. So 811 came along. We were not complying with 811. The state informed us that we absolutely had to. So we've been completely compliant with 811, and we don't yet have a handle on exactly how much this is going to cost us. So we are, as we go along, making these transfers as necessary, and after at least one full year of this, we'll have a better sense of how much we need to budget for 811 on an annual basis.
This is an ordinance. Anybody opposed? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Councilman Beatrice. Burmeister.
Now, the money that they're spending on this 811, obviously is not available.
Yeah, it is in the budget this year.
What is it?
Yes, it is. It's the digging one. Remember the one that we had to fund for digging all the state says we have to make sure that before people dig, we call 811? Yeah.
For gas lines and everything, yeah.
Yes.
Right. So we now have to call 811 every time and have an area surveyed prior to any digging that we do anywhere in the city, and we're still trying to figure out how much that's really going to cost us. So we haven't been able so far to make an accurate prediction of what the budgetary requirements are going to be. But we expect to be able to do a better job as time goes by.
Anybody opposed? Very good. Discussion is closed. We'll move the vote. Next piece of legislation also came from Board of E&A. I'll refer to Councilwoman. Please take the floor.
So we've seen a couple of these before. So we had some end-of-year salary accruals, the CSA contract settlement, and in this one we also had a mathematical error in terms of we had not taken into account one employee's longevity, and so that's what this one is for.
Okay, so it's a salary and wage transfer
Yep.
within the thing.
Yep.
Okay.
And most of it is within the same cost center of the controller's office.
It's within the contract too for CSEA.
Yep.
This also was an ordinance. It needs unanimous. Everybody good? Very good. We'll call for a vote.
Just something to note, which we gotta figure this out. The 811 transfer, although the account numbers do technically reflect this with the 5-1, it does not have the budget year. In this transfer, we need to have, it should be noted if it's 21-22 or 22-23.
It's 2020, it's
Oh, what
21-22.
budget year you mean?
Right.
It's 21-22.
Yes, it's last year's budget.
Last year's
Right.
budget.
Right, which is why this year it's budgeted for Councilman Burmaster.
Right.
So hopefully we won't be seeing any transfers, but the reality is that this cost goes up and down wild. As Mike Mahoney came in and explained to us a couple months ago.
Okay.
Remember that?
But correct, this is for last year's budget.
Exactly. This is not now, this is
Yep.
a cleanup.
So when you read into the record, can you mention that it's for the budget
Yes.
for 2021?
We can amend.
Thank you.
21, 22.
Yep, 21, 22. Thank you. Our next piece of legislation is an appointment for assessment and Board of Assessment. Rosemary Tellerico requested the position. I think she'd be a great addition to this. Everybody knows, probably everybody knows Rosemary here. Any discussion?
Did the clerk, you have the official proof of her residency on file? Great.
Okay, discussion's closed. We'll move the vote. Our next piece of legislation is to amend, sponsored by Councilwoman Colosimo Testa, is to amend the fire department complement. Councilwoman Testa, you have the floor.
Sure. When do you want to have the discussion since it's an ordinance? Right now? Is that okay?
It's,
Or
if
should we wait
if you
for
would like
the
to refer to
committee
committee, that's why I'm giving you the floor.
Listen, I'll refer it to committee and then I'm going to call for a special meeting on the floor.
That's your prerogative.
Thank you.
All right, this legislation will be referred to committee.
Could we discuss this legislation now?
Absolutely.
Okay, first of all, obviously, everybody knows I was a firefighter for 20-plus years in the city of Utica, and I've been on this council about 4.5, 5 years. And I just want to say, firefighting, you have to take special people to be firefighters. And the last couple of years, I noticed the firefighters, they don't have a contract. They've been working 2 years, 2019, without a contract. The police officers, they're a year behind. We've been able to fund the police department with 5 additional members. Obviously, we okayed the money, the money from ARPA funds that came down from the mayor's office. I think it's time that we start supporting some of my fellow firefighters, the men and women out there that are on the streets every single day, just battling and actually truly saving lives with the ambulance service that we do have. We have got to really look at this deep, because I noticed in the last week we probably had about 8 fires. And the main thing, and the chief, I wish he was here, the main thing you need on a fire scene is manpower. You need people, and we don't have many people that are responding to these fires on any given day. So that's something that we really seriously have to look into. I challenge any one of your council members just to ride that first ambulance just for 24 hours. You just see how beat up you are the next day because the call volume. The chief said it himself a few weeks back, that record number of calls, 15,000 calls per year. Just figure that out over a 365-day period. I mean, these men and women are getting beat up out there. They need the extra help. I know we have the SAFER grant that we're looking to, and maybe it'll come in July, but it's not a guarantee. There's 60 other departments in the New York State that are fighting for the same grants that we are, and they may award maybe a half a dozen of them. So it's not a guarantee. It's like picking a lottery ticket or something. It's not a guarantee. So we must consider helping these firefighters and giving them the manpower. Also, there are 6 firefighters that are on 207A, and that means that they are out sick permanently. They are not coming back. We are short-staffed. Well, we had a member recently retire. There's 7 members of the fire department that are not even here, that we can't even utilize. So we've got to get them some help. And I wish that you just consider supporting this legislation. At least it's a step in the right direction. I know many members are saying, well, a couple of them that I spoke to, well, why don't we wait? Why don't we wait for the SAFER grant? That's no guarantee. We don't know if it's coming or not. But if I can guarantee if we don't get the SAFER grant that we pass this legislation, I'll be happy. If we pass it tonight or next meeting or whatever it may be, I'll be more than satisfied, because I think they need the help they need. We've supported the police department. We gave them all the tools they need. We give the fire department a lot of the equipment they need, but they need manpower. They need people on the fire scene. So I just want to say, please consider it, fellow council members, consider it. And if you want to take a ride on an ambulance, I'm sure we could set it up and you'll see what they go through on a daily basis. They worked through the pandemic. They got nothing for it. They're working on 2019 wages. They're 2 years behind. come on, let's step it up here. Let's step it up before, God forbid, someone gets hurt. God forbid, they do have job burnout, and I've seen it myself, the couple fellow firefighters when I was working, running on these calls and seeing the people at their worst time every day, every single day, someone passing away or burn victims or whatever it may be. They do have a stressful job, and so please consider this legislation. That's all I'm asking. Go ahead.
Can I-
Councilman Beatrice, you have the floor.
Yes. So can you just explain, I just want to verify a couple of things, sir. This SAFER grant that we keep talking about doesn't apply to this. So we approve these four, these are firefighters, the lieutenants, okay? When the SAFER grant comes, if we were to get the SAFER grant, that's for 8 firemen only, not lieutenants, correct? So are you telling me that if we approve these 4, and I think I agree with you 100%, but that means we would be putting 12 people on, or are we gonna say when the SAFER grant comes, we're only gonna take 4? So how are we going with this?
Well, let me say this. If we approve the 4 right now, obviously it comes out of the city budget. Obviously, we have to pay for it. But like I said, with the increased calls and the increased ambulance runs, I'm sure that we're getting more money in than we ever have done before, as far as, getting services for EMS, for ambulance transports and things of that nature. I'm sure we are getting more. So I'm sure we could afford to pay for that. When we get money from the ambulances, we get it and it goes into the general fund. None of it goes back to the fire department budget. And I'd like to come up with something, at least maybe 10% of it comes back to pay for some of these salaries that we may have to, pay for with adding additional firefighters. So what I want to do, I want you to consider it. Obviously, it is going to be upping the complement by 4 members, but I strongly feel that we need more manpower on the fire ground. I mean, that's number 1. And like I said, the chief wasn't here, but we do have 6 members on 207A. We have a 7th member that retired, so we are short-staffed. And if we keep waiting and waiting for this SAFER grant, I know the mayor in his memo said it's July, we really don't have a set figure. We had something called the downtown DRI, right? We're supposed to get the money, $10 million for downtown. That was last year. We still haven't gotten some of that money. So this is not guaranteed money that's going to come by. This is not guaranteed that we are going to get the grant, but this will guarantee that we put some more firefighters on the front line and get them the help they need, because these men and women, God bless them. Thank God we haven't had anybody seriously hurt, but I strongly feel that we need more manpower. And I just want to mention one thing. In 2012, I believe we had 130 firefighters. And I got to say that the call volume in 2012 with 130 firefighters, then they cut it to 124, is nearly double today. And we're doing a lot more with less members. So just please consider it as a council. That's all I'm asking.
Can we also, this doesn't really pertain to that, but it's something that I'd like to see every one of you guys support. I've been on here for going over, it's my 3rd year. They've been fighting, everybody else's contracts are settled with the firemen. Why can't we as a council, put some pressure on to get to the table, don't leave the room until it's done? I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous all the time. I listen to both sides of the story. I'm like the middle of an Oreo here. You don't know who to believe, but let's get it done for these guys. You know what? Nobody ever realizes either. They were in every house during COVID. I just witnessed from my mom. I'm not yelling. I'm just how I talk, okay? So what I'm saying is there something that we can do as a council to put pressure on the administration and the fire to get together and get it done? Because it's getting old. I'm getting sick of hearing about it all the time.
You don't have to address me. You can address
Councilman
everybody else.
Miola?
I did.
So it's okay.
Majority Leader, can I have the floor for just a
I'll
second?
tell them to meet you in the parking lot.
May I have the floor?
Mr. President, go ahead, and then, of course, Mark Williams.
All right, I just wanted to clarify, Councilman Beatrice, it's not the purview of the council. So the only thing council members can do is either act individually, publicly, or pass resolutions urging the mayor to do so. But that's literally the extent of what you can do.
And Mr. President, that's why I asked, is there anything we can do? So thank you for answering.
Those are the 2 things.
Mark, you have the floor.
Chief Ingersoll, what's your feeling on this?
The additional 4 lieutenants.
The additional 4, so we've discussed, and I guess my concern
is that if we're asking for a safer grant, and we wanna add 4 right now,
For what?
you wanna increase the complement by 4.
By 4 lieutenants,
By
not
4.
4 firefighters.
Okay. You wanna increase the complement by 4 lieutenants. If we do this now, we're asking for 8 additional firefighters funded through SAFER, because one of the reasons with SAFER is that we don't have the funding available and that helps us pay for it. Does it impact our?
Jeopardize the safer
Does-
grant.
Does it possibly jeopardize the SAFER grant long term?
Sure, and let me ask you a question. So even if we get the safer grant for the 4,
Yeah.
or for the 8 additional firefighters, it
Yeah.
doesn't account for lieutenants. So right now, do you feel that your staffing for 4 lieutenants is adequate enough to be staffed fully, or do you need those 4 additional lieutenants?
I've asked for the 4 additional
Okay,
lieutenants.
so that's my point. And that is for a liability purpose, or to staff your department the way you feel is necessary?
It's try to staff the department how I feel is necessary.
Okay, that solves it right there. So even with the safer grant, okay, that's still not talking about firefighters. We're talking about lieutenants. Even if you add those, you're still gonna need that additional manpower for those lieutenants. So say we don't get the safer grant, right? We don't get those 8 additional firefighters. You're telling me you still need those 4 lieutenants in order to staff adequate, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
And we were saying though that we were gonna swap the 4 firefighter positions for the fire lieutenants.
So
Yeah, that was my original proposal, and then,
So to me, that hinders that more, because you're taking away firefighters, which you're asking for through the safer grant, right? We're not talking about firefighters, we're talking about lieutenants.
Yes.
Okay, so even if we get that safer grant now, we're still gonna put those additional 4 lieutenants on, if you had what you needed was necessary, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Long term though, we still don't have an active list. So no matter what action we take,
What do you mean active? So explain that in detail. What do you
Okay,
mean you
so-
don't have an active list?
we're waiting on the civil service test
what?
for firefighter, for an
Okay.
entry exam.
Okay.
So the earliest we're gonna be able to hire anybody is gonna be September.
Do you have an active lieutenant list?
Yes.
Okay, are we talking about firefighters or lieutenants right now?
I'm talking about firefighters.
Okay, so are we talking about lieutenants or firefighters right
on
now?
this piece of legislation, we just want to promote 4 and not touch the firefighters, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I'm gonna support it, and you know, Chief, I've worked with you on the line as well, and, you know, you need manpower, and with the members that we have that are hurt, I think it's time. I'm getting very,
Nancy.
yes, I am getting antsy, because I know they said that, is it for sure that the safer grant is gonna be awarded in July? Is that a fact, or we're just saying maybe a couple of months?
We spoke with the grant writer about it. They feel towards the end of June or end of July that the grants will start coming out.
Okay.
So there's no set date.
Yeah, I wanna go back, do you need the lieutenants now? That's what I'm asking. You need the lieutenants now?
We had asked
I-
to swap 4 firefighter positions for 4 lieutenant positions. That was the original intent.
So we're short-staffed already, and we're going to be short.
Even shorter. So you're
The lieutenants fight the fires too.
Oh, really, Frank?
Yeah.
Wow.
They're not fired.
Yeah, they are.
Yes.
Can you give an example?
We
For
have to-
example, yesterday's
I
second
would
alarm.
love to give
No,
you a
'cause this-
lowdown,
this-
people
this-
don't know.
Because
The
this
chief
what
has
needs,
to
this
say.
what needs to be explained, especially you're talking about lieutenants. You call for a roll call, right? Who's the one that's responding to the roll call? Is it the lieutenants or the firefighters?
It's the officers.
Exactly. So, I mean, that needs to be explained in detail. I mean, yesterday they had a second alarm on Nickel Street, right? If anybody's there listening to the scanner, it's a little concerning, okay? And especially if you had somebody out of title that's a firefighter, not trained as an officer in those positions. You're going to get yourself to a point where somebody's gonna get hurt, and it's gonna be a bigger liability on the city than you're worried about your 4 lieutenants positions. And that's at the end of the day. We're not talking 2012, we're talking about 2022. I've never had an argument of putting people back. I mean, the argument's usually taking people away. I'm mind boggled in the 10 years I've been on the council that I'm fighting to add people back to a position. That's it. So please explain what the problem is with for example, yesterday's second alarm, when it comes to staffing with your officers and what they do compared to firefighters.
Okay, so our companies are made up of an officer, 2 firefighters, with the exception of 7 engine, which is made up of an officer and 3 firefighters. So all our staffing on the apparatus, with the exception of 7 engine being 1 and 3, and the rescue unit, rescue 2, being 1 and 1, where there's a firefighter and a officer. They're all staffed with at least 2 or 3 personnel. There has to be an officer in charge. That officer in charge is usually a lieutenant or it can be a captain, but all the members work on the fire ground. So just because he's a lieutenant, or just because we have a lieutenant or a captain, doesn't mean that they're not the first one inside the building. They usually are, especially when they're on the engine, when they're on the truck, they're leading the way into the burning structures. They're working alongside all the firefighters, and they're working together as a cohesive unit and as a team. So there's no differentiation between the personnel on the apparatus. So everybody's working. Nobody's standing back, with the exception of the deputy chief, is standing outside and supervising the overall operation. So all the officers are actively engaged
Right.
in the incident.
If you don't mind, Chief, I'd like to add a few things. Everybody's identified by their helmet. They have a patch on their helmet, and it says 3, 2, 1, whatever it may be. So if they're from 3 engine, it'll say 3. And that officer, whether it be a captain that day or a lieutenant, and the 2 officers, the 2 firefighters that are underneath them, report to their officer, whether it's a lieutenant or captain. And 3 engine stays together as a unit, and they go in and they, whatever the chief says for them to do that day, I want you to open the roof. That crew goes and opens the roof. The other ones are attacking the fire, and maybe 4 engine. So that 4 engine, that has the number 4, they all stick together. You never leave your officer during a fire. And the officer is the most important position on the fire scene, other than the deputy chief running the fire, if he has to pull everybody out. So I just want to let you know, it's very, very important that we have officers that go to training school down in New York City, and they call it flip school, and these officers are there for a couple of months, and they get certified as officers for the fire department. When you take a firefighter that may be on the job for 6 years, and he's on the lieutenant's list, he may be on 20th or 21, and you get down to call him back and say, you got to fill in for Lieutenant so-and-so because he's on vacation. That officer has 6 years on the job, and he may be supervising a firefighter that has 15 years and another one has 10 years. But that supervisor is the key. That officer is the key on safety, on what to do, how to do it, when to pull his men out, when to pull the people, when to charge in there. They're the eyes and ears when you're in that building or you're on that roof. So I just want to let you know, you need that experience, you need that certification from the New York City at Flip School. So it's the safety of the men and women, and that's one of my concerns. I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks, and I just had to get it off my chest tonight. And we've got to make a move. We got to do something. Our call volume is through the roof, and we got to do something to help these firefighters out. So.
Mark?
So, doing these lieutenants tonight, say we pass this tonight, will this help save on your budget for callbacks?
You got to jump on the mic. Thank you.
It'll limit some of the callbacks that are going on right now, but the big impetus behind
Will it save the city money off your budget?
is potential to save some money. I can't commit fully to that because the fact is that we have we have openings right now, so it's tough to catch up to those openings.
Okay.
The long-term 207As crush our staffing every day. So that 5 or 6 that are out that, we'll go back again, this long-term 207A cases, we got everyone from that's been out from 2 years to 10 years. And we just can't get those cases resolved.
So you need them to effectively run your fire department? Yes or no?
Yes.
Can you ask
Okay.
that again? I didn't hear that.
And I just want to.
He said, do you effectively need officers to run your department?
Councilman Brangle, can you
Yeah,
wait
and I
one
just
second?
want to let you know, the
Frank,
council, one thing. When he says call back, that means you're filling in a position for someone who is out. So they're calling back a firefighter or a lieutenant or a captain to fill a spot that is scheduled for that day. So that's what a callback means. You're
Okay.
calling back a person to fill in for 10 hours or 14
And it all
or
goes
the whole
back-
shift.
And truly, it all goes back to the minimum staffing that we have contractually. And the key with the minimum staffing is that we need to meet that minimum staffing daily to keep firehouses open. and to affect respects.
Okay, Councilman Williams, you also.
That's all I have, I'm good.
Councilwoman Ayala, you have the floor.
Yeah, we've obviously been talking about the amendment since January, the very first meeting. Is there anything that, just seeing how the lieutenant increased for now, what changed? Like, why wasn't that brought up, I guess, in the past 4 months? Is there anything like more happening?
Because I was trying to just put the complement back to the staffing that they actually
That's
needed.
fine.
And if they wanted to adjust it the way they needed to, that fitted their department, that
So
would have
that's
been
how they would
something
do
that we could have discussed. So back in 2012, just trying to get it back to the staffing that it was back then. That was it.
Did you ask the chief?
Yeah, I mean, it was part about her
Thank you.
legislation too, so I appreciate that. But yeah, I was just kind of looking through.
Okay. So, Chief, your recommendations are to add the 4 additional lieutenants, have them trained for reliability reasons, and reduce the fire linemen at this time for positions. Wait until the SAFER grant comes, and we can staff appropriately after that. Is that true?
That's what I was looking at.
That's what you're recommending. Okay. I'm okay with taking the chief's suggestions on that and amending this legislation according to that tonight. It is an ordinance, and I'm hoping that my colleagues would support that.
With all due respect, Councilman
May I
Viola.
finish, Councilwoman?
Sure.
Thank you.
Go right ahead.
I'm for doing that and waiting until the SAFER grant is done. I don't see anything wrong with it. I think because they've been operating that way with the 4 lieutenants out of their positions, because the linemen are actually working as lieutenants. And of course, you need the supervision and the training for that supervision in the interim. So I agree with the chief on that. If my colleagues would, we can amend Samantha's legislation, and if my colleagues would agree on it, we can move forward with it.
So here's a couple of things, and I've got a serious problem with that. And the reason why is, number one, is you're asking for a SAFER grant to add 8 additional firefighters, but in the same token, you're taking away 4 firefighters. So what is the point in that? Why not just give them the additional staffing, and then if we have to adjust the complement to the way it is, once you get awarded the SAFER grant, which is another month away, then you change it then. I mean, I'm talking about adding 4 additional lieutenants now, right? I'm not talking about the firefighter line. Why not keep the complement at 85? And then if you need to adjust it, say we only get 4 additional firefighters, you're still gonna need those 4 positions, and then you add the additional 4 firefighters. And excuse me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Mayor Palmieri presented it was through attrition anyway, so it's not like you were gaining any of those 4 positions to begin with. So now you're taking away those 4 positions just to add them back when a SAFER grant comes? It just,
It's
come
about
on.
funding, Samantha.
Frank, I get it, but you're not filling those 4 firefighters' positions right off the bat anyways, because they need to be trained.
Is
So
it-
those positions are not gonna be filled, so you could transfer that money, if needed, to the lieutenant lines. Because you're not filling those firefighter positions tomorrow, because he just said he doesn't have a test adequate until June.
I believe the chief is the recommendation for the department.
Chief, would you rather have 4 additional firefighters and 4 additional lieutenants, or would you rather have 4 additional lieutenants and 4 firefighters
I
taken
mean,
away?
that, of course, the chief would
Chief,
want more
let the
people.
chief answer.
I will not, I can't say that I don't need I can't argue against
Thank
myself
you.
on that.
Exactly.
I can't argue
Come
against
on,
that.
Frank, stop breaking chops, just do the right thing. That's all you're
Samantha.
being.
All right, just, everyone
I
take,
made a recommendation.
this is not my meeting. However, I'd like to request that everyone respect the chair, which is the majority leader during the pre-meeting conference. Address all questions and comments to the chair of the pre-meeting conference, which is the majority leader. And if you don't have the floor, please heed to the chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. This legislation will come to fruition. I'm going to make a motion to amend. If there's unanimous, I'd like to follow through. If not, I'd like to be notified. If not, are you going to, if
I'll
there's
let
a
you
motion, are you going, Samantha?
I'm actually going to be calling for a special meeting on Monday.
No, I'm
to
asking
discuss
you,
this
I'm asking
legislation.
you right now, if this is amended, will you support it? Because,
Councilman Miola,
Just say yes or no.
I am adamantly against taking away 4 firefighters to add 4 officers to that complement.
Councilman DeBrango,
I am
you're-
going to, I am
I'm gonna
not done
support this
talking.
legislation.
I'm going to
This right here
ask
is written.
that we have a special meeting on Monday, okay?
Me?
Once it's introduced to the floor, I will make a motion in a second to call for a special meeting Monday to introduce this legislation so that it doesn't need unanimous support and you can vote however your little heart desires. How's that sound?
well, I'd like to move something tonight if my council feels,
It still needs unanimous.
and you can always add yours after,
Sure, and I'm
Samantha.
gonna make my motion before yours.
Councilman DeBrango, you have the floor.
No, I just said, I will support it as is, as written, with increasing the Florida lieutenants only, and hopefully my colleagues will follow suit.
You agree? Okay.
Can
Anything
I-
else?
I wish that the budget director was here. Does somebody want to spell out for us how much that's going to cost?
It's gonna spell out the 4 additional firefighters that you're not utilizing, because he doesn't even have an adequate listing of firefighters that he could even hire tomorrow. Will not be hired, what does it take? How long does it take to even get the test and to even hire somebody? It'll bring us to
September,
next
right?
budget year,
The
okay?
the
And I'm
earliest
pretty
we
su-
could possibly hire is gonna be, we're looking at a September 12th start to the fire academy. It's if the current, that's if the civil service list comes back
Come on, Frank.
graded by the end of June. By the time we get done through the candidate physical abilities test and the background checks, the earliest they could be hired is September 12th. The earliest they would be done with the academy would be shortly before shortly before Christmas.
And the one thing I will say is, you wanna know what's really good about our budget, is that we actually have a contingency in there. So if we have additional funds, we can move from contingency to those lines.
Got some other
I just
pieces
let
of-
you make one comment.
All right, Frankie, finish up.
How could a civil service, how could they drop the ball and not have anybody available? I have no idea. These firemen and women, they get treated like trash.
They do.
They get treated like trash. They don't have a contract. We're trying to give them help, and the son of a gun will not help them. Please, I'm talking to you, Mayor. I hope you're listening to me. Help these firefighters. That's all I'm asking. Thank you. I got a
Councilman
vent.
Ranger? Yeah, you're all set.
It's aggravating, Frank, come on.
All right, we're gonna move to the next piece of legislation.
So just so that my colleagues are aware, I will be calling for a special meeting, so it doesn't need unanimous on Monday. So I ask that you hold your vote off until Monday, please. Thank you.
It'll be up to them if they wanna hold it.
Thank you, Frank.
or
They're
not.
their own independent people. Let's remember that.
Absolutely, Samantha. Thank you for that encouragement.
No problem.
Our next piece of legislation is an ordinance, and it's sponsored by Council.
Oh, God, I thought it was
Council-
done. All right, so I'm gonna go with ordinance 8, 9, 10, 11, and 13. How's that?
This would have been over last week, we just said yes.
Well, it would have, but the
Did
11.
the
So,
corporate council have the opportunity to review this?
I did not. I just saw these a little while ago.
all right, but they were introduced
It's
yesterday,
going-
so that's not my problem.
It's going to
So
be-
let me explain, Frank, that I am a council
There's a
person, I've been
Thursday
the
rule.
council person for 8 years. I'm pretty sure I'm familiar with understanding how to put legislation forth. So what I did was, if you give me a chance to explain, I would really appreciate it. We were
Go
getting
ahead.
we were
Go
getting
ahead,
along
Samantha.
last week, Frank.
Come on, you have
Let
the
it go.
floor.
All right, so number 8. This one is rescinding section 2-16-136, which is speed limits generally, okay? And I'll just go through my explanation. Number 9 is also rescinding section 1-16-137. The other one is rescinding section 1-16-139, okay? And the reason I did that, I'll get you to an explanation. It goes back to, I gotta take out ordinance 11, so skip that one if you don't mind, all right? And then go to proposed ordinance number 13. So we used to have 2 sections of the speed limit legislation that said that there was one that was 30 miles per hour, and then section 1-139 said 25 miles per hour. So by eliminating that section, what I did was consolidated it into section 136, which talks about speed limits generally, okay? And it gives the generalization that 30 miles per hour is the speed limit, with the exception of section A and B, okay? So if you go to section A, it talks about school zones. A 15-mile-an-hour speed limit will be enforced in the vicinity of all school zones in the city of Utica and are listed below. I took a little note from the last section. These areas listed below are in the school zone, and the safety of pedestrians, vehicular traffic is paramount. I listed every single school that is inside the city of Utica, from Thomas R. Proctor High School, Notre Dame Elementary, the 2 middle schools, the elementary schools, also including Notre Dame Elementary School, okay? So that it's clarified in that section that all school zones are 15 miles per hour. Then I go to section B, which has exceptions. I worked with the police department. They gave me a list of city roads. They have a specific speed limit inside the city that are not in a school zone. I generalized it from 15 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, and 35 miles per hour. So that way, at any point in time, if we were to adjust a speed limit zone other than 35 miles per hour in the city, it is now listed per mile per hour inside that specific code, so you're not referring back to two sections of the code which talks about speed limits generally or speed limits with exceptions. Okay, so by rescinding those two ordinances in those two, I'm taking everything away so that you don't have stuff from 1964 and we're replacing it with the 2022 legislation that reads more formally and we don't have to travel to 7 parts of the city code. So I would like to thank the police department for helping me with finding out those speeds and Joe Beatrice for not passing it because it was a lot more work than it was just by passing his. The end.
Are you all set, Samantha? Thank you. Joseph, go ahead.
Yeah, can I ask you one question? So we have a 15-mile speed limit in front of every school in the city. That's all I wanted. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm under the understanding too that some of the roads of the city of Utica, we can't put it has to be 30 miles an hour because of some kind of conflict, unless it's within the school district, we can do that. But our corporate counsel is going to review this legislation. It's going into committee, and hopefully she'll have some type of input for us when she gets time, and we'll move it forward. Of course, the school district ones were all agreed upon. It's the ones outside the school district. Some of the streets that I know that are posted 20 miles an hour are actually posted out of the norm for legality. But can you review that when you have a chance?
Can I ask one question? So
Sure.
if the council approves it and the police department there's actual signage up right now, so all these were verified, they actually have speed limit signs posted. So for example, Brookline Drive has a speed limit sign of 15 miles per hour. Adrian Terrace from east to west has a speed limit sign. These were all verified. What other clarification does the Corporation Council need in passing this legislation tonight? Because the only thing we're doing now is setting ourselves up for liability because these signs are already posted.
Where I agree with
And
you.
they're already generalized in the code. So the ones that didn't have 30 miles per hour or that speed limit sign in there, we eliminated those so that the speed limit is 30 miles per hour. So if you don't mind, let me ask Corporation Council, what other verification would you need in passing this legislation?
I don't need anything. I just haven't had a chance to review it.
Okay,
So
so
you're
I just-
asking me to look at stuff and give my stamp of approval. I can't do that without
Okay, so
reading it and reviewing
So
it.
let me ask you a question. What else would you need for stamp of approval on this?
I don't know that I need.
Time, she needs time.
Time. That's what she needs.
But
Time.
what
Give her a little time.
Can
Okay,
I-
so then
can
we
I
have,
ask-
we don't
Can I
have
ask a question?
things
It'll
ordained.
be a week or two.
So I'm just trying to figure this out. So I'm looking at ordinance number 10, and you're saying that 2.5, whatever it is, 3 pages, those are all ones that are not, these are all exceptions. They're not about school districts. It's that these are streets which, for whatever reason, the police department has said should have a separate speed limit.
So for example, let me give you, and this is why I literally went through this isn't my first time passing legislation, okay? So I thoroughly went through with this. So I want to explain to you that I've done all my homework. I verified it with the police department, verified it with everybody, and that's the most important component of it. So for example, if you look at, let's say, go to the second page of 10, okay? See where it says Proctor Boulevard, okay? Do you notice how there's not a speed limit sign next to it? Like what the miles per hour for that are?
Right.
So I eliminated those that didn't have a speed limit zone next to it, verified with the police department, and we categorized it in 15 miles per hour, 20 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, and 35 miles per hour, so that there is no confusion of what the speed limit is. If there was no speed limit next to that, like I said, for example, that one, it was 30 miles per hour.
Okay, so,
Because the way our code reads is there was 2 separate pieces, so if you look at, and this is why
yeah,
I
I get all
also-
that, I get all that.
But wait, I wanna explain something to you really quick. So if you look at ordinance number, 8, and you look at ordinance number, 9, okay? If you go to the second page, so, all right, a perfect example, go to ordinance number 8 and ordinance number 10. Let's look at those two.
You're not letting me ask my question.
No, I know, but I wanna show you something really quick.
But
that's
I have a
very im-
specific question.
Right, but I wanna
and you're
be-
walking, and you're not letting me ask it.
But this is very important before I forget, because I just want to show you this really quick. So proposed ordinance number 8 says, the public streets of the city of Utica at a rate of greater speed than 30 miles per hour except in school zones. The second component of that legislation says, upon the basis of engineering and traffic investigations, 25 miles per hour is established as the maximum speed. So there's two, just to point that out, there's 2 separate speed limits inside the city that are on our city code right now. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so can I ask my
Thank
question
you.
now?
Yep.
Great. So I'm looking at ordinance number 10.
Mm-hmm.
And you're saying that all those streets, starting with Adrian Terrace.
Yep.
Those are all the exceptions to this standard.
To the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit.
Right, I believe you're missing one.
Correct.
Which
You're
one's
missing a
that?
lot of them because I know about at least 10 more.
Master Garden Road isn't on this list, and Master Garden Road is 15 miles an hour.
There's Knob Road.
So
is
then it's
ma-
not
is marked.
legislated for.
Yes. So
It's
let's,
not legislated for.
I actually, wait, no, let me finish.
Sure.
Right? Okay.
Go ahead.
We just recently, within the last year and a half, wanted to repost that road, make sure that it had accurate speed limit signs, because I was concerned about fast traffic on Master Garden Road. And the police department at the time did their due diligence, and before we put up new signs, they checked. And yes, indeed, there is a code that Master Garden Road is to be 15 miles an hour. If we pass this as is, Master Garden Road is gonna revert to 30, and I'm gonna lose the little mind that I've got left at this
So
point in the
correct, and
evening.
that's the problem with this legislation. On top of that, is because there is nothing in the exception that's listed under the city code. There is nothing in there that states that that's 15 miles per hour.
Point of quick order here.
So, and
Go ahead.
No, I have a question that might actually impact this.
Go ahead,
Did
Mr.
you get all this from E-Code 360?
I did, and the police department.
And that
they
wasn't
verified.
updated, you're correct.
No,
So
th-
that might be the issue.
Yes.
But the police.
I don't know.
I got it from the police department.
Right.
Right, but the problem is, I think both of you would have to go to Corporation Council and see where it is right now,
East Coast
because
zone the easiest thing.
E-Code 360,
So for example, the police department, they will go by signage. So if there's
Right,
a
so they
15
might
miles
not-
per hour zone, that's what they give the ticket for, and that upheld over than city code. So that's why I kind of wanted to generalize
No,
it.
but I think, look, let me just make one thing clear. I think what you're doing is great, and I like it any time that we can clean up the code and make it simpler and more consistent. I like that a lot. But Master Garden Road, there wasn't enough signage, and they investigated to make sure that there was a law in the books that said, yes, indeedy, 15 miles an hour. And so then they put up more
So
signage.
this is what I'm saying is the problem with having two separate codes. So for example, if we pass this tonight and it goes back to 30, you see that that's there. Now, you go to the new ordinance and you say, oh wow, Master Garden Road isn't in there for 15 miles per hour. You can add that in there. And it's listed. It's not in two separate parts of the code, which has been a serious problem of why there is so much confusion, because you're going to two separate parts of the code. The police department's got one thing, we've got another, and it's not good. So
Okay.
that's why
Are we
I'm
done?
saying generalize
I like
it
to-
in those zones.
All right, thank you, Samantha. I'd like to move to other pieces. I think these pieces we should refer to committee until our
Sure,
corporate
sure,
council
we'll
has time
just-
to review,
Yep.
and we'll go from there. Let's go
So
to
do
the
we
next
go,
one.
wait, time out, Frank, just out of curiosity. So as a council person, I'm pretty sure when I present legislation, my corporation council is the one that gives us legal advice. If the city administration does not like what's going on, they either veto the legislation or pass the legislation as is. So why am I talking to corporation council as a legislative body on every single piece of legislation that I have when we have a city corporation council up there
It's
for
always good to
ourselves?
have another set of eyes on a piece of
It
legislation.
is, but what,
Samantha.
but every single piece, then what's the point? Then I might as well just hire Stephanie DeGiorgio as our legal counsel. Because you're
I like them
telling me
both.
as a council person, I have to go through her every single time. That's not right.
I like them both working
Sorry.
together, Samantha.
Yeah,
I'm
I do
sorry.
too, but you wanna know what, Frank? I still got
Let's
a
move
job
on,
to do
Samantha.
too.
Thank you very much.
This is ridiculous.
Point of order. If 5 council members
I mean, it's,
believe they should go check with somebody else, fine. But if 5 council people
Nine,
want
Bob.
to, if 5 council people want to enact legislation, even if it's garbage, they can. Okay.
That's right.
That's the reality of it. That the body can do by majority vote, whatever the body wants to do. But you do have to work together as 9 to pass valid legislation.
thank you.
So,
We'll bring this up on the special meeting on Monday too.
well, that's, so just
Appreciate
sort it out. Thanks.
Are we all set? We can move on to the next piece.
That's
We're
the
on
process.
number 12, I'm assuming?
We're doing
Committee, yep.
We're going to committee. We gotta wait for our third corporation council to check over it.
Legislation number 12,
8, so I just want to be clear, 8,
9, 10, 11, and 12,
10,
No, 10, 11, 13.
10,
and 13.
and then 13, and 11 got pulled,
Right.
with 13 replaced.
Yes, thank you.
And we're on number 12, which is the appointment replacing Paul, oh, no, we are replacing Paul Romano.
Yes, we are. So, I contacted Paul Romano, and after some deliberation with the firm that he works for, he wants to go on behalf of an advisory component, which I totally understand, and Paul is more than willing and ready to help, which I love Paul. He does a great job at what he does. In the meantime of trying to fill their replacement, I contacted the county. James Genovese, who is the planning director and very heavily involved with other flood mitigation task force throughout the county, had offered himself as a recommendation to be appointed to the flood mitigation task force.
200 Elizabeth Street?
Yes, that is the county address. I mean, that's where he works. We can find his address, it doesn't matter, it's not a city appointment, you don't have to be on the,
But why do you put the county address down?
I don't know, because they didn't ask him for his regular address. He can still has his place of work, so.
I thought the legislation did say you had to live in the
No,
city, no?
I hope not, especially for that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we're referencing him at his work address, correct?
Yes, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm sorry, a few pieces need the Thursday rule waiver, if the council would be so kind to do that also. Our next piece of legislation is from the assessor's office. This legislation is a local law. Of course, it has to sit on the table for our 7-day limit. I like to refer it to the table. We can have discussion at our next council meeting. This has to do with the assessment rolls and for the Board of Assessment, what time of year that they meet. I think we should bring our
I'd like to,
assessor in here.
I'd like to place it in committee in order to have a discussion with him and then lay it on the
Yeah,
table.
I'm not laying that on the table.
In its final form, I understand. If you guys want to amend, we can do it either which way. Doesn't matter.
There is no big, there's no timeliness to this, because it's not gonna take place until next year anyway.
Correct.
So there's no particular time pressure. I'd rather that we
We can
place
put
it in committee.
Absolutely. Okay, we refer the local law to committee. We have 5 minutes, Mr. President, if that's okay.
Make a motion.
Well, it's 5 up, so yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's relax for 5 minutes then.
Make a motion.
Thank you.
Secure.
Thank you, Mr. Minority Leader. Motion granted. Thank you, sir.
Okay. It is 7:10, May 18th, 2022, and I'm going to call this meeting of the City of Utica Common Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Irvin, Beatrice, Williamson, Classimo Testa, DeBrango, Glemy, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the Common Council. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all.
First order of business this evening are the minutes. They've been posted to Ecode 360. I'd like to know if the council has read and if they would accept those minutes.
I have read them and I would accept them. I'd like to waive reading of the minutes tonight.
All right. We have a second from DeBrango. Any opposed to the reading of the minutes? Or, I'm sorry, waiving. The waiving of. All right. The minutes have been dispensed. Just a procedural note on the minutes. The format of them may be changing. I was discussing this with the clerks earlier, clerk and deputy clerk. You may see a format change where the actual body of the legislations that were dealt with that evening will be attached to the minutes in either an addendum or in line. If you guys do check that out, see the difference. Most of the reason will be that the motions that are carried and or dispensed on what is read into the record must be in the minutes, so that, for example, if something is dealt with on the floor and at that next meeting you want to move that, we need to make sure that the pieces that are dealt with at the next meeting are those same pieces, etc. Yeah, sure.
I want the council to know that I met with Charlie Brown today. And the president preceded me on this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's quite all right.
Oh, yeah.
And the subject came up, and we discussed the way we adopt the minutes. And probably, have you talked to him? Is that where you got your information, Mr. President?
Say again.
Did you get that information from Charles?
Well, it's through the clerks, but yeah, it was it. Yeah.
But the clerk, you got it from Charles?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, that's he already he didn't mention that to me. That's why.
Okay.
But I knew that you were going to be doing the change. It's nothing that's going to be cumbersome.
Right.
But I think we'll follow his advice.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Okay. And I don't think there should be any controversy over that. Thank you.
And there's nothing necessarily wrong with what was done prior, because the legislation has always been recorded, especially through Code 60 that you were dealing with, but we'd like it actually read in the minutes, so that's in line. All right. All right.
Great job.
All right. Thank you. All right. Before we move on, there's been a bit of a controversy in the clerk's office that I do want to raise. I noticed that this was
loaf of bread?
Yeah, and the problem I have with this is that this is a Freihofer's loaf of Italian bread.
Looks Italian.
And I would expect in Utica, New York, that if I was going to find a loaf of bread that was Italian in the back there, it'd be from one of our local bakeries. So I'd like to note that for future reference, let's... Yeah, there we go. All right. I was trying
to break bread with.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw something out there. After our long deliberations from earlier. All right, so next order of business is public hearing. We do have an empty public hearing this evening. We have no properties and no one signed up, so we are going to close the public hearing. We have public comment period. We have one person signed up this evening, Nathaniel Tuff. If you could please come to the podium.
Is that a different podium?
Like the color?
It is a different podium.
Yeah, the mayor took a good one.
All right, the Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. It should be is it posted on the podium? Okay. Will you abide by the rules?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name and you may begin.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel Tuff. Born and raised in Utica, New York. I've seen a lot of transitions take place here, including the effect of the drugs and everything that has taken place with our city. And I see our fine council as you guys are, you're doing what's necessary to try to keep our city functioning properly. I see a lot of good economical development, but I'm here at the same time to speak of two things. One, I think that we need to do a little bit more with our youth that's in the city right now. When I was a kid, I went to camp. That's where I learned to swim. They picked us up in the summertime. There was recreational centers. There was even sometimes even competitions. And this is like being depleted. And I know that you guys have a lot of important major things that you are taking care of. But you can't forget about the little people as well. When we start developing our city, we have to also look back at what's left. You don't develop one part of the city and leave another part out. So if we're going to be developing our city, I think we need to lower crime. I think that it just makes sense. And one of the ways of doing it is we have to start cutting it at the source. These kids, they don't have nothing to do. They got the radio, you got the media, you got the TV, you got girls' skirts getting higher, guys' pants getting lower. And I believe that we are able to do anything. Utica has always been a very powerful city. It's always been an industry city. We're not building anything anymore. And most of the things that we do, we hire these contractors from different places and we bring them in and we pay them millions of dollars when most of our solution is right here. We stop overlooking each other. Stop overlooking what we have here. For instance, we could take some of these nonviolent felony offenders, start a certificate program. This benefits the city, it benefits them, it benefits everybody. And put these gentlemen to work. I got something that I've been working on. It's a 5-year program. That way it's not something simple, so when a person is not violating or not doing any crime, you can tell that their intentions is consistent. So we make it a 5-year program, nonviolent felony offenders. Some of these roads have been messed up in Utica for 30 years. I mean, I'm riding over potholes that I've been riding over since I was a kid. We can fix this. It can be fixed. We start putting some of these people, start putting some of the people to work when they come home. For one, because when you come home and you make a mistake in Utica, let's just face it, nobody's gonna hire you. You're not gonna be able to work at all. So you take these people, you bring them home and you say you paid your debt to society, but they're not able to work. And what does that do? We're creating a big circle, because the only thing that this nonviolent felony offender is gonna do now, he's gonna become a violent felony offender. So I figured that if we start cutting some of this at the root, then we can prevent a lot of future crime. You'll see the wave on this, when we start cutting it at the root. These children are running around with guns galore because there's nothing else for them to do. And I remember our city right out here in front of City Hall, we would have it would be all type of celebrations. And I'm not referring just to the hot dogs and the potatoes we used to do. I mean, we had events, and the council and the city was very supportive of it. So what I'm saying is, if there's someone that's willing to sit down and talk to me, I have some ideas that I think that could help our city drastically. And I don't want anything. I just want, because I believe when you're from a place, you owe that place something. This is where I'm from, and I see the advancement in our city, but I also see some disadvantaged people. And we need to do a little more better franchising. We need to not overlook these people, because sometimes that's easy to do. It's very easy to do. And another thing, with the cigarettes that's being sold in our city, these loose cigarettes. You allow stores to be bought, and then you're not really watching over these products that are being sold. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of cigarettes that's being sold in Utica that no one's paying taxes on. You jump in your truck, you ride down to North Carolina, you go buy a pack of cigarettes for $2, you come up here and you sell them for 75 cents each. That's making money hand over foot, but at the same time, it's a lot easier for a child to go scrape 50 cents, 75 cents off his grandmother's dresser and go to a store and sell them. Because that's what they're doing. And I feel like, because I'm from this community, that I should be saying something about it, because it is necessary. And these cigarettes that they're selling, they have not been approved, they're not inspected, we don't know where the stuff is coming from. This thing can cause respiratory problems for these people in the future, emphysema and all of this. So I'm not sure if that's part of Utica's plan, is to fill our new hospital up with people with a bunch of breathing problems. But yes, we need to get down a little more harder on this, because it's still flowing. I go to the store to go buy soda and I see children buying cigarettes, kids. And then I said something earlier the last time I came down here, because we both know that advertisement means a lot. You have these children, and then they have to, in order for this little girl to go get a juice, she's got to walk by all these alcoholic beverages. If you're trying to tell me that isn't influence. So we need to come up, if possible, with some sort of ordinance to maybe let them see this as less as possible. And we remember a few years ago, some little young girl went into a store and she was raped and all of this other stuff, you know what I mean? And I spoke to the guy at the store, not about that situation, but about, you know, better advertisement, you know, protecting our children. And he told me that the reason that the kids have to walk past the beer before they get to the juice is because he don't want people to steal his beer. Well, what about these kids? Isn't that, I believe that that's more important. So yes, I just want to say my name is Nathaniel Tuff, and I would be willing to come down here to sit and talk to any of you guys. You know, we have to be more rational, you know, because you guys are the authority. You can do anything. So there's no situation or problem in Utica that you guys can't take care of, that you guys can't handle, because you have the position right now. And wouldn't you want 20 years from now for there to be a major impact that you have played a part of? Something that you can say, well, you know what, these kids aren't on drugs anymore as much as they used to be because of the decision that we made. You know, I know that there's a little bickering here and there, but let's get right down to some brass tacks. You know, we can do anything. If you want to help some of these people, let's help them. And I'm willing to give you my opinion on how and what I feel would be a good thing. I've been in trouble before. I've been through the system before. It's not easy when you come back home, that transition, when you come back home and nobody wants you, and you discourage of the earth. You can't find a job. I don't want to see other people go through what I went through. And I want y'all to help them, because it's your job. It's your duty as citizens. That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
I'm done. I'll see you guys next 2 weeks.
Nathaniel,
Yes.
can you just put some contact information on this for me before you leave? Thank you. Just hand that over there. Got a pen? Yeah. Thank you. All right, that ends public comment period. We don't have any guests this evening. But I do, I just had this confirmed earlier today. Actually, the email confirmation came in before the meeting. There's been some pipe work with Mohawk Valley Water Authority. I know a lot of us have been getting calls. My street's one of them. But it started on Ashland Ave in North Utica, actually, where the Water Authority is relining some water mains. So I spoke to the Water Authority, and a representative from the Water Authority is going to come to the June 15th meeting, explain what exactly they've been doing to the water mains and how the projects have been going, and if they're also looking forward to doing more of that. I know the Water Authority is obviously separate from the city, but a lot of different people have been asking what they're doing, and I think having them explain that to the council so the full public and all the council people can hear that would be appropriate. So June 15th, the Water Authority is going to come in and explain what's going on with all the pipes above ground and the water main relinings. No problem. Communications from the mayor. We do have something. This is from Mayor Robert Palmieri, dated May 18th, 2022. This is the mayor's words. I want to remind the council and the public the final date for non-containerized green waste pickup will be May 27th, and all green waste must be containerized after this date. Furthermore, grass clipping must be containerized at all times, even during the non-containerized green waste period. Failure to do so causes major drainage problems during storms. It also causes problems for motorcycles when they're trying to go around corners. I've experienced that myself. The administration announced several new businesses that are opening in Utica, including a business that will be locating into recently renovated buildings in downtown/Bag Square. This is a positive sign of continued economic growth as the city is attracting regional businesses, many of which are opening their first establishments in Utica. Last week, signage was unveiled throughout the city. I think there's a little misprint here. Yeah, throughout the city to indicate the commencing of projects funded through the Utica Prosperity Initiative. More signage unveilings will be announced in the coming weeks as more projects begin. In speaking with fire administration and several members of the council, the administration believes any changes to the fire complement would be premature at this time, as we are expecting to learn of the outcome of our SAFER grant application by July. Once we know the results for the Safer Grant application, the administration, in coordination with the fire department and council, can discuss and determine which changes to the complement will most enhance operational effectiveness and efficiency. That concludes the mayor's report. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Got it? All right. Clerk, I believe we have a cash report.
City of Utica cash report for April 2022 is 63.761 million received and filed.
All right. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals. First District, Councilmember Katie Aiello, you have the floor.
I have nothing to add tonight. I just wanted to say thank you to Nathaniel for coming out to speak, and the more we hear from people in the city, I think the better we can make the city be. So thank you. That is all.
Thank you. Second District, Councilmember Robert Burmaster.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to send my condolences out to the Buffalo area and all the victims that were impacted from the horrific crime, and my prayers and thoughts go off to them. I just want them to know that there are people that are thinking about them, and the state needs to make changes to law reforms and get on this stick. But I'd like to thank the fire department for their work over the last 8-10 days with the amount of fires, and the police department for doing such a fine job. And I got one more thing that kind of was my pet peeve. Monday I received an email from Geek Squad. It was an invoice for $329.99. I don't deal with Geek Squad, but it was a scam. It says call if you want to cancel. I called. While I was on the phone, they were very persistent. They wanted me to open my bank account to see if I had posted a payment. I told them I'm an old fart and I don't do banking online. I said I'd have to call the bank. I'll call you back. Give me a number. They said no, we'll help you set up an account so you can check. And I said, well, you should be able to check because you've got my invoice. I didn't order it. It's a 3-year contract, $329.99. I don't want it. I'm not going to pay you. Well, the only way you can get your money back is by telling us today if they've taken the money out of your bank account. Just log on M&T Bank. Well, they even know the bank I deal with. I didn't give them that information. I said, I don't do this. I got to call you. Well, you can use your credit card. And they told me my credit card. And I said, I don't do that. I'll have to call the companies because I don't do anything on the internet. And he said, well, you can set up the account. I'll walk through the account with you. I'll show you how to set up an account so you can view the. I said, well, you should know if you've already received a payment from me. Well, we can't give that information out. I said, well, it's my account. According to this invoice and the number you've given me. Well, finally, he hung up on me because I think I irritated him. I was on the phone with him for over an hour. You know, I mean, I've had Jehovah's Witnesses at my house that can't get away because I talk too much. But I was out with my sister last night having dinner, and she mentioned she got 2 invoices, one for $349 and one for $380 from Geek Squad. So just be vigilant and what you receive by email. I probably received a half a dozen of these in the last 6 weeks. I don't know if I got sucker on my head or what it is, but you know, just be careful who you deal with. Don't give your information out. Don't open accounts when you're talking to people on the phone because you don't know if they can get into your accounts. I just wanted to share that with everybody, and thank you, Mr. President.
You're welcome. And you're right. People need to be aware. So thank you. Third District, Councilmember Celeste Friend, you have the floor.
I just, on behalf of the other people that scam artist couldn't call because you kept them on the phone for an hour, thank you. On behalf of those people, you did a great service to for those people. I want to echo Mr. Burmaster's comments about what happened in Buffalo. You know, one of the things I did is he came from Conklin, New York, that white supremacist terrorist, and he chose Buffalo because I guess from his warped point of view, there were enough black people in Buffalo. Conklin, New York is half the distance to Utica as it is to Buffalo. He had to travel 4.5 hours to Buffalo. Would have taken him 2 hours to get to Utica. And I just thought about sort of how, arbitrary this violence is and how this could have been us. So I echo Mr. Burmaster's sentiments on that. And I think that there are things that we collectively need to do as a society to make it harder for people to get hold of AR-15s, assault weapons. On a happier note, I would like to officially congratulate James Paul and Tennille Knoop, who are the newly elected members of our school board, who were elected yesterday. The really exciting thing was the turnout. Over 3,100 people turned out to vote, whereas a year ago, 1,700 people had turned out to vote. So the city almost doubled its voter turnout for a school board election, which are traditionally very poorly attended elections. There was a lot of energy. There were 6 in-person forums and an online forum, and just a lot of activity and energy around this, and a lot of engagement by people in Utica, across Utica, who really cared about this school board election. So I congratulate the 2 new school board members, but I also congratulate everybody out there who went out and voted, including a lot of people who had never before bothered to vote in a school board election, and this year they decided that they wanted to engage that process, which is terrific. Good for us. Good for Utica that so many people turned out to vote. So, and that's all I have this evening, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you. 4th District, Councilmember and Majority Leader Frank Miola. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I echo a lot of the sentiments of what happened in Buffalo. It's a terrible thing, and a lot of families are mourning and have a lot of broken hearts in that area. So let's just pray it doesn't happen to one of our family members or somebody we know. So with that said, I'd like to thank everybody for helping out for the storm that we had, all the trees out in the streets. Thank God DPW is doing a great job. I'd like to thank DPW. I'd like to thank you, Dave Short, Freddie on it. They got a lot of that debris out. There were, I would say, hundreds of truckloads of debris from that storm. And I just want to mention the neighbors. For example, just my block alone, there's 3 crazy guys with chainsaws. So they were helping their neighbors, seeing trees on houses, climbing them, cutting them. And it was a good neighborhood effort. I know that also was utilized in a lot of other neighborhoods. I'd like to thank those neighbors who came out and assisted the neighbors who could not move the trees, either physically or whatever problems that they had. And I'd just like to send out the thank you very, very much for the neighborhood help. There's a lot of men and women that helped their neighbors with these trees, and I'd just like to thank you. Thank all of you. And once again, thanks DPW for getting all that cleared up as fast as they did. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. 5th District, Councilmember Bettis Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to thank DPW for coming through and doing a good job that they did up in Ward 5. It's a good thing the mayor sent a message out, because I got that out to everybody that was going to be a slow with some of the pickups. So that worked out pretty good for me. And also I want to thank the parks crews, because I called them up and told them that all the parks in Ward 5 had bad haircuts, and they had to come back and fix it. And they came back within a couple of days and used some of the things that they needed to use to cut around the poles and the trees. And actually, Legislator Irvin called them up too and told them, what are you doing? Do we have to get some new weed eaters for you? And they came right down in a couple of days and did what they needed to do to fix that up. I just want to remind everybody that I think for the first time we got a little road race that's going to be running through Cornhill. I think it's 3 miles, and that's a walk too. That's going to be fun. We've already talked to some of the residents on the route. They try to get them to make sure their lawns and in front of their houses and the road are kept clean, so we can cut down on what DPW has to do. So I think it's going to work out pretty good. It's going to be fun. I'm going out to make a little speech. That should be fun. So I think that's about all I got.
Thank you.
Do you know what time that road race
Yeah, I think it starts at, maybe
Saturday,
kids at 8:30
June
and,
18th. Yep.
and racers, the runners at 9.
Yep, thank you for sharing.
You gonna run?
Oh, no, I'm not running.
You can't run into the speeches.
I'm actually gonna go make my speech, and I'm gonna sit on my porch because they're running right by my house. They're running right by Johnson Park. So.
All right. Very nice. 6th District, Councilmember Joseph Petrus, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. First thing, I'd like to thank the engineering department, the administration for taking care of a project that I've been going back and forth with them on Willow Drive. It's an area where I grew up, and I want to thank Stephanie and Mike and Austin. They finally got it done. It took me 2.5 years, but they probably got sick of me hearing me, and it's done, and they did a great job, so I appreciate that. Lastly, I have a very soft spot for nurses because my daughter's a nurse, but I never realized what goes on in a nursing home. And unfortunately, last week, my mom took a fall, and that's where she has to be now. And I want to thank all the people that work in those communities, and thank everybody at St. Luke's Home for welcoming her, making her feeling at home, and bending over backwards. And if you haven't been in a nursing home and see what those people do round the clock, I'm very, very proud and very sympathetic to what they do, and very thankful at the same time. So that's all I have tonight, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Councilman at Large, Minority Leader Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to pass.
Thank you. Councilwoman at Large, Samantha Colosimo Testa, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'll be very brief. Sometimes I forget I'm in a live meeting and some of the things that I say, but I do want to say that to Stephanie DeGiorgio, that I do appreciate the work that the Corporation Council does. Sometimes Frank Miola aggravates me and gets me to say things that I don't mean to say, but
Thank you for addressing the chair with that.
I just
but,
just want to clarify that I do appreciate the work that you do. But as a legislator, sometimes it's a little difficult to try and have people stop your legislation when it should go through the proper channels. So
Thank you.
just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you, Corporation Council. Councilman at Large, President Pro Temp, Frank DeBrango.
Nothing to report. I think I said it all during our pre-caucus meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Moving on to legislation. Proposed ordinance number 1, no parking at all times. Coventry Ave to Service Place. Hang on here. Let's get all this legislation so we make sure we're checking the boxes right here. All right, this is sponsored by Councilmember Beatrice. Do we have someone to second that?
Second.
Okay. We go with Williamson. Be it ordained that section 216-360, Schedule E, no parking at all times, to be amended to include the following. Section 216-360, Schedule E, no parking at all times. West side of Coventry Ave from the front of 447 Coventry Ave southbound to Service Place. Be it further ordained, the proper signage will be erected where necessary. Your votes.
I'm sure it's not north.
Yeah, you guys used your compass when you wrote this, right? Yeah.
9 E's adopted.
All right. Proposed resolution number 2. This is sponsored by majority and minority leader, so we'll need someone to move it.
Can you just make full sponsor on all the beer and wine permits?
It doesn't really matter.
No, I'm just saying.
All
I wanna
right. So
support
Councilman Miola, is there a
Second.
second? We have a second for Williamson. This is authorize the sale of wine and beer to Utica Zoo. Name of sponsor, Utica Zoo. Name of event, Brewfest. Date of event, Saturday, August 6, 2022, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. Location of the event is Utica Zoo, 1 Utica Zoo Way, Utica, New York, 13501. Be it further resolved, and I'll read this only for the first wine and beer permit, that this permit is conditioned upon the permittee defending, indemnifying, and holding harmless the city of Utica, its agents and employees from any liability allegedly occurring, so on and so forth, and providing liability insurance, naming the city of Utica as insured in the amount of not less than $1 million for general liability and $1 million for liquor liability. The certificate must be provided, etc. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Proposed resolution number 3, authorizing the sale of wine and beer to Utica Zoo for Sunset Sips. It's moved by Miola.
Second.
Second from Williamson. Name of the sponsor is Utica Zoo. Name of event, Sunset Sips. The date of these are Friday, July 8th, July 15th, July 22nd, July 29th, August 5th, August 12th, August 19th, August 26th, from 5 to 7:30. It's obviously reoccurring. Utica Zoo, 1 Utica Zoo Way, Utica, New York, 13501. Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Proposed ordinance number 4. Be it ordained, the city controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds. This is an E&A transfer. From A55650102, off-street parking wages, and A51440-463, engineering, gas, and oil, to A51440-411, engineering, contractual 811, in the sum of $22,923. This is from the 21-22 budget year to adjust for unexpected dig safely services. Your votes. Or wait, Miola, who's moving?
Second.
All right, Miola and Williams. Your votes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
9 E's adopted.
All right. Proposed ordinance number 5. Be it ordained, city controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds. It's from A51315-102, A51315-451, A51420-101. That's controller wages, controller leases, and law salaries. It's going to controller salaries and controller social security in the amount of, let's see, what's the total here? Oh, we don't have the total. Well, into A51315-101, it's $62,446. A51315-802, 3684. To adjust for year-end salary accruals. This again is a 21-22 transfer. Your votes. Miola.
Second.
Williamson.
9 E's adopted.
Councilperson Friend, you good with those? Those are all sorted?
Yep.
All right, thanks.
One sec, no, I think-
All right, proposed resolution number 6.
$20 if they need it.
This is sponsored by Councilmember Miola. Is there a second to this Board of Assessment and Review
Second.
appointment? We have a second from Williamson. Be it resolved pursuant to section 523 of the real property tax law, the following person is hereby appointed as a member of the Board of Assessment and Review to complete a 5-year term that was held by Joseph A. Falcone due to resignation. Such term shall start on May 18th, 2022 and expire on September 30th, 2023. It is for Rosemary A. Tellerico. We have a first and second?
Yep.
Your votes.
9 E's adopted.
Okay, proposed ordinance number 7 was up for quite discussion. It's sponsored by Classimo Testa, amending the composition of the Bureau of Fire for the city of Utica, New York. What should we do with this?
I would like to call for a special meeting on Monday.
What would you like to do with the piece of legislation that's
Mr.
currently-
President,
I'd like
I'd
to make a
like a motion
motion to, I've already got a motion, Frank, calm down. I'd like to make a motion to place into committee.
All right,
and-
let's process this motion.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Williamson is the second to place that in committee. Your votes on the board to place this in committee. Okay. It's in committee 5-4.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to,
Hang on just one second. I just want the clerks to.
Yeah, I'm not gonna clear it yet.
All right, you got it? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to call for a special meeting on Monday at 4:30 to discuss this legislation.
Is there a second?
I'll start.
Okay, we have a second from Beatrice. On the, well, hang on, because I need her to clear the board. All right. Your votes on the board calling for the special meeting Monday at 4:30.
Frank, leave him alone. Leave him alone, Frank.
Councilperson Miola and Irvin, please vote.
Leave him alone, Frank.
This is like playing pitch. There's no crossboarding or whatever, right?
7 A's, we're gonna be doing the special meeting,
Thank
4:30.
So we do have the media here and I believe watching on YouTube. So there will be a special meeting called Monday at 4:30 p.m. in the Common Council chambers.
There better be a birthday cake with some candles.
Is it your birthday?
Turning the big 3-4, so.
Oh, wow. It's crazy.
Got nothing better to
Can you
do.
say that time and date again, Mr. President?
It is Monday, which would be the 23rd. Am I correct?
Correct.
Monday the 23rd. May 2022, 4:30 p.m. There'll be no pre-meeting as it's a special meeting, and the agenda will be for the special meeting you're calling.
I'm also gonna put the,
Well,
ordinances of the speed limit legislation if it doesn't pass tonight. I'll make that motion after to add that to the agenda.
well, you got to do it now. You're calling the meeting. So what's the agenda?
All of it.
Okay, so the Bureau of Fire, ordinance number 7.
8, 9, 10, 11,
Okay.
or 8, 9, 10, 13.
All right. It's set. Moving on.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I'd like to put my name on this ordinance number 7 as well.
Okay.
For sponsor.
All right, and co-sponsor. Anyone else want to be on that as co-sponsor? Yes?
I just want to add one point. I believe there may be another board meeting Monday at 4:30 in the
Here,
chambers.
in the chambers.
Right. They're
This is
gonna,
I don't
our
know
house.
that. I'm just.
This
They're gonna
is
have
our
to-
house.
I'm just making a.
thank you. They're gonna have to move it.
Just making a note.
Thank you. These are our chambers.
All right, well, if
Just a kidding.
if it's required, well, no, so
Listen,
we
there's
have the media
sandwiches
watching
in the
this.
box. They gotta move. No.
We do have our conference room, which has always been used for special meetings, so if the public does attend, they're obviously invited. The meeting will be in these chambers, either in the conference room or
We'll move them
the
to the
floor.
conference.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we just make sure that that's also live streamed as well? Thank you.
Okay, I just confirmed with the video team that we're live streaming. Okay. Yeah.
I'm on that, right?
All right. You'd like to be on that as well? Okay. Beatrice wants to be on as a sponsor. All right, we're moving on from that. We're all set. If anyone would like to add their name to any legislation, please do so at the special meeting. Proposed ordinance number 8, sponsored by Councilmember Colosimo Testa, is an ordinance dealing with the speed limits generally to be rescinded.
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to waive the Thursday rule.
We have a second from Miola.
Do
Any
we
opposed?
have unanimous?
Anyone opposed to waiving the Thursday rule for all the pieces on the agenda that need the Thursday rule waived? Waived. All right.
Mr. President, you can put me on all this legislation since all I wanted was my speed limits to
Okay.
be there. Okay?
Sure, sure. You're
That's all I
100% sure?
want, yeah.
All right, so Councilmember Colosimo Testa, are you moving this to be voted on, or are you placing this?
I would like to, but I would like to take a straw poll. If there's not gonna be.
There's no
uni-
straw polls.
All right, then
No
can we
straw
take a
polls.
vote to pull it out of committee or pull and make a motion to the floor to see where it goes? Because I'm not gonna waste my time if there's not gonna be unanimous support on this, and then just have the meeting on Monday. So are you gonna waste my time, Councilman Miola, or are you gonna pass it tonight?
We're on ordinance number 8.
Get it read by our, no, I'm not gonna support it right now.
Okay, so then we'll put it on the agenda for Monday.
Well, then,
Because I'm pretty sure it's,
please
I'm pretty
place
sure
these
it's
in committee.
flawless. I'll
Please-
place it in committee.
Please place these in committee.
Make a motion, place it in committee.
Okay, so ordinance number 8, section 2-16-136, speed limits generally, to be placed in committee. Councilwoman Testa, can you please make is there a second on placing that in committee? Miola is the second. Any opposed? It's in committee. Proposed ordinance number 9 is another piece dealing with the same, except the section sponsored by Colosimo Testa. Would you like to place this in committee?
Yes, sir.
Second? Okay. Any opposed? Okay, section 2-16-137, exceeding established speed limits to be rescinded to include the following, et cetera. That's in committee. Now we have proposed ordinance number 10. Number 10, and this is where the minutes, including these pieces, are important. The way the minutes will read for this next meeting, which will be shown at the special meeting, the legislation that was introduced this evening will be in line with those minutes for you to refer back to. Proposed ordinance number 10, be it ordained that section 216-369 Schedule N speed limits be rescinded to include the following. This is a whole list of the old speed limit legislation that sits in city code. Is there a second to place this in committee?
Second.
Miola? Oh, we're gonna go with Williamson on that one. He was the loudest. Any opposed to placing this in committee?
Nope.
All right. Proposed ordinance number 13. I know there was a proposed ordinance 11 in the pre-meeting conference packet that I believe at this point, as discussed in pre-meeting conference, will not be introduced, so we're skipping to 13.
12.
Well, 12 is dealing with something else.
Yep.
So we're going to go through the
We'll
rest
skip
of the
that.
parking legislation right now. Or, I'm sorry, the speed limit legislation. Proposed ordinance number 13 is sponsored by Councilwoman Colosimo Testa.
I'd like to make a motion to put in committee.
Put it in committee. Okay, is there a second? Second from DeBrango. Any opposed to placing section 216-136 speed limits generally be replaced to include the following? 216-136 speed limits generally as introduced or as discussed in pre-meeting conference. Any opposed to placing that in committee? Okay. It's all in committee. Thank you very much. Now we will move on to proposed resolution number 12.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. That's Williamson and Colosimo Testa. Move and second for a resolution appointing the following member to the Flood Mitigation Task Force. Explanation, replacing Paul Romano. James Genovese, pursuant to the membership of the FMTF, shall be as follows. As read in that legislation. 7 members, 3 members to be appointed by the Utica Common Council, 4 to be appointed by the mayor. 1 from the Engineering Sewer Department, 1 from Public Works, 1 member from the Planning Department, and 1 mayoral designee, etc. Sir, second? Oh, we had the motion in second. Votes on the board.
I just want to, I'm still waiting on the appointment from the mayor for his appointment to the Flood Mitigation Task Force. I'll give him by the end of this week, and if not, I will be sending out a letter to call for a meeting to get this going on June 8th, and I'll set a time, so just so everybody can clear that date from their schedule.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the rest of the votes, please. We've got Venice. Thank you.
9
Okay.
9 is adopted.
Mr. President, I'd like to refer to local law to committee, sir.
Okay, so we have an introductory to local law, which rather than laying on the table is going to go into committee for those watching, et cetera. We have a second from Williamson. Although it's not being laid on the table, would you like me to read this into the record?
If you would like to read the title, it would be good enough, sir.
Okay.
I didn't say anything.
A local law amending section 5.0.22 of the Utica City Charter to change the taxable status date for the city of Utica from August 1st to March 1st. The reasoning for this, I'll just summarize, is to essentially modify the grievance date so that the Board of Assessment has the appropriate time to deal with it.
Before we adjourn.
Oh yeah, that's no problem. Any opposed to placing this in committee?
Is that local law?
Yeah, the local law. It's not being laid on the table. They want to put it in committee. Talk about it first.
Was there a second, clerk, to refer to committee?
I thought we had a second.
Okay.
Williamson, yeah. Oh, DeBrango, I'm sorry. All right,
Thank
you
you.
guys got it. All right, any opposed? All right, it's in committee. Councilperson DeBrango has the floor.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing to the clerk, what we discussed previously regarding the City of Utica Civilian Safety Board. There are 3 members that applied to the council. I just wanted to go on record that you can contact them at our next meeting. Most likely to be at 4:30 p.m. Our next meeting to come in. We'd like to interview them and hopefully make a decision. Thanks. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. President.
Second.
Okay. Thank you very much.